and welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magic with me, Steph, and my lovely co-hosts, Lizzie and Tony. Today's episode is called Beyond the Veil, where we'll be discussing all things death, spirits, death doulas, past lives, all sorts of things. We'll be talking about our own personal experiences, going into tools, and lots of different things in store for you today. So we are going to start with this soul's journey after death and have a little bit of a discussion on what we think that means for us. So I think that the soul's journey after death reincarnates into another body. I totally believe in past lives. So that's what I think happens after death. I don't know. What about you guys?
And why do you think that?
Well, I have had past life readings before, and I just totally feel that after death, our soul's journey doesn't end. I feel like there's always like an association with death to think that that's an ending, but I feel like it's almost more of a transformation. And I just believe that it's not the end, and our soul just keeps
going.
I keep wanting to say regenerating.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that word. That's beautiful.
Regenerating. Obviously, normally you would say reincarnate, but I feel that, I don't know, I just have this deep feeling that that's what happens. I just don't think it's always, I just don't think it's the end.
Weren't you told, though, that this was going to be your last life?
Yes, I was told that, actually. I forgot all about that. Sorry. This is my last life. Yeah, so when I had my reading, I had someone access the Akashic records for me. And I was told that I had had many lives. One on Atlantis, which got me very excited. But yeah, I got told that this was my last life. And then after that, I would be ascending. I don't know if she said where.
Where am I going?
I will be ascending somewhere. But yeah, fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating.
I think that's really beautiful. I really like. What did you say? Rejuvenating?
No,
we didn't.
Regenerating.
I'm just going to say all the R words.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about skincare.
Excuse me. But I think that's really beautiful. I think my view on it now. So, as I've said on the podcast before, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and it was sort of a real pivotal moment in my life because he was my everything. And I was there's so many instances where I feel like he's definitely behind me. He has come back as an energy, but it's an energy force. It's not necessarily him as a person. It's like an energy force that is like latched onto me.
Beautiful.
Which I think is so beautiful. And I think the thing that I thought was really amazing as well. So Dad was buried, and I just, that idea, and particularly I think with witchcraft, the idea of returning to the earth, that idea of becoming the flowers and the soil and the air, and returning to nature. There's something really beautiful. So I do think actually I would like to be buried, because I think, and I do think I would love to have a tree planted on top of me, because I would love to become one with nature. That's sort of how I see it. And then I see the soul. The soul is almost like this moving entity that can transform and mold, and I feel like the energy I have from Dad is almost like I always say he's pushing me. It's like a force field that's just pushing. So I think the energy sort of attaches onto maybe your favorite things and pushes it forward, whether that be a person or...
Were you the favourite?
I was the favourite. No, sorry, Bernie. Your mum's favourite, let's be honest. But I do think it latches onto the thing it loves the most. That's how I see it now, which I think is the way that I understand it and interpret it for me. So it's like the body becomes the earth, and the soul then latches onto its favourite thing on earth and helps it or moves it. I remember another really close friend of mine had lost his mum. And he said something beautiful to me, which really helped, which is, he said, sometimes when I'm really missing them, it's actually very witchcraft, this. He said, when I'm really missing her, I'll close my eyes and I'll feel the wind. And he said it might be like some of her, he said something like some of her essence would be in that wind and would hit him in the face.
I love that. That's
And then,
beautiful.
yeah, it's so beautiful. And he said it to me. I did say, hello, Mr. Witch. That's a very witchy thing to say. But I loved that idea of you could close your eyes and they could be with you, even in the wind. Or so it's that energy just lives on and on and on and on. Yeah, and that's how I see it. And then I've had, I mean, we'll go into this probably further, but so many instances with Dad where I'm like, oh, it's just relentless. He's just completely, his energy is just on me, just attached. And that also helps, I think, when grieving, when moving on, thinking, well, that you hear the words, don't you? They're always with you. They're always with you. It's a really hard thing to understand, like for your mind to sort of come to terms with. But then with energy, I think it really makes sense. You go, oh yeah, their energy is with me. And that sees me forward.
Do you think that's different to their soul?
I think
is it
it's
the
the
same?
same, I think.
Yeah.
I think the soul and the energy are the same.
Probably a stupid question.
Not at all. No, I think that's a really, really good point. I think it's the same. I think the soul and the energy,
Do you
the
think
essence.
some souls are just not ready to move on? And perhaps, and perhaps that's what it is with some souls.
Yeah.
They sort of maybe
Stuck.
your dad's energy or soul felt like it needed to be with you until
Right.
your
Yeah.
life.
An unfinished business.
An unfinished
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
I totally believe in that.
Oh, yeah, I believe in that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's like, not quite finished yet. And maybe there'll be a moment, actually, when he might
Yeah.
descend. He might just move on, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Fascinating. What about you, Toe?
I think that I spend a lot of time thinking about death, not only because I consider myself like a death witch,
You're not a death witch.
ancestral witch is probably a more a nicer term for some people. Not just because of those things, but also because I am so sick. I think having a scary neurological condition, you think about the end quite a lot. And, you know, I'm not really that old, I'm 37, and that feels scary in a way. But I think it's scary sometimes thinking more about the suffering rather than the actual end. And so I think I spend a lot of time thinking about when the end is coming rather than what comes afterwards. And I think that, you know, a lot of my witchcraft practice is about communicating with spirits or ancestors. And I really think we have a very odd relationship with death in this country. I don't understand why people are so afraid of it, because it is the biggest moment of our lives, really, other than birth, and the only thing that's definitely going to happen. Inevitable thing, yeah. In terms of what happens after death, I think a mixture of what you've both said. I feel very much that it is strongly linked with the death, rebirth, whatever cycle. Wow, sorry, I'm really in my head right now. But so I think, you know, it's an energy transfer. We're wearing life suits right now, and they become nothing. They become part of the ground. They feed nutrients to the soil, and I think our energy connects to nature and the environment and helps keep all the good things about the world going, if that makes sense. I think I definitely believe in past lives too. And I definitely have lots of kind of like strange deja vu moments. I've had lots of moments where I've like out of body experiences that would tie in with past life. And I think also intergenerational trauma and stuff like that. I think that there's definitely something past life linked with that as well. But yeah, I think very much there's some kind of like energy transfer, transition. I'm not sure that I believe in ascension, because I think that feels to me like it's got a kind of like elitism feel. You know, when they talk about reincarnation, you start out like a bug and then you end up being a dog at one point, and then you're a donkey, and then you're a human. Do you know what I mean? And then you become like a really wealthy human, or like a king or something like that. I don't think ascension fits within my belief system, but I think it's more about the interconnectedness of everything that is living, whether that is the soil, the plants, the animals, the humans, and what happens beyond our own universe as well. I think I like the idea that we become like stardust in the sky, and
beautiful.
Are part of the much bigger picture, but a really small, insignificant part. Like I find there's a romanticism in being insignificant rather than needing to be someone that was something really special.
100%. Yeah.
So I'm not really sure. I think that's kind of...
It's hard to have a like full on answer to it, really.
Well, we don't know, do we?
Exactly.
Just don't know.
I do think some people are closer connected with what happens because of near-death experiences. That's my dog.
Oh, hello.
Excuse me. Sorry,
there's someone in the room.
Yeah, I do think people that have like near-death experiences potentially, they have said seeing similar they've seen similar things. A lot of people talk about seeing a white light and talk about, flashing through their life and all the memories that they've had. And I do think people that have that like that, or people that have experienced trauma in a big way, tend to be more perceptive to energy in the room. I know that I definitely am perceptive
100%.
to feeling different energy, good or bad. Have you guys experienced that before?
Yeah, I had a bit of a strange experience in our house, actually. When I was walking up the stairs, like often I'll go down the stairs to get a glass of water in the night, or fill up my glass of water because I like drinking water. And I came back up the stairs and I could see on the landing at the top of the stairs, it was almost like a energy field.
Oh, wow.
It was really weird. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to walk through that.
Where am I going to go?
And I was like, also that there was actually someone that had passed away on the landing in our house that we know about. And I've always felt that that his presence was there, but not in a like intrusive way.
No.
So yeah, I connected that energy field to be his, but it wasn't anything nasty. And then I just passed through and went back to my room. A little bit kind of like
taken aback by seeing it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then obviously I had the experience with the psychopomp as well, which, we spoke about in another episode, which did really freak me out back then, because obviously...
You were younger as well.
Yeah, I was a lot younger. I was only 15 years old. So yeah, they're the two kind of main experiences I've had. But I definitely feel like there was a tendency, and has been throughout most of my life, to shut off the energy to it, to being...
Probably because of fear.
Right?
Absolutely, yeah. Because of those experiences that I had when I was younger, I think I completely closed off that part of myself to being susceptible. And because I've started, opening up myself a little bit more, I'm starting to see and hear things more, like after some of the, sessions that we've done, I've kind of drifted off into part sleep and part awake and heard whispering and things like that, which don't feel scary anymore.
I get that all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, I know that my mum has also had experiences of seeing different things. I know she's had an out of body experience. She saw, two of my uncles, who I never met because they died when I was very, very young. Sorry, not when I was very young, when my mum was very young. So they were children when they died. She said that when we were carrying when my nan died in the UK, she was literally just about to move back to Malta and she didn't quite get there, sadly. So the family took her body back to Malta and she's buried
so beautiful.
in Gozo, where
that makes me feel quite emotional that they honoured her wishes in death.
Yeah, no, it is really beautiful. But at the airport, when they were waiting to board the plane, my mum said that she saw two faces, which she related to be her two brothers that had passed away.
Wow.
So it was like they were with her on the journey. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's so beautiful. It's funny that you say that because I feel quite connected in the spirit sort of world, the afterlife, with members of my family. So when my granddad died, my dad's dad, funnily enough, I had a week where it was quite extraordinary. The first thing, talking about seeing faces, I was on the train on the way home and we were going through a tunnel, a really quick tunnel, and I looked and I could see my granddad was sort of next to me, but it would flash like his face for a second. And then I kept feeling like a hand on my shoulder for like a week afterwards, like a tap on the shoulder or a hand on the shoulder. And then my mum told this story that I'd been in bed and I'd sat up and I thought I saw Pa. It's called Pa at the end of the bed. And I went into her room and I got into bed with her and I said, "We're not alone." And then she said, she was like, "Pa, if you're in the room, I just want to go to sleep." But I think I've always had a connection. But it wasn't that I was scared of it. I just sort of ignored it.
Yeah.
I sort of just went. Pfft. But recently, and again, it's opening yourself up more, and it is doing the work and in the craft and everything. And like you, beginning to see things a lot more and hear things a lot more, and really actually believe in the soul's journey and that it goes on. And there are times when they come to you and they leave you, and it's sort of, it passes through. But yeah, with I sort of feel, my connections are past family members that come through quite a lot. I get ancestry, that they come through. That's the more that I get. Which is, really interesting.
Which is really, really interesting for me because even though I call myself an ancestral death witch, that's not who I see at all. Whenever I've experienced spirits or seen spirits, they have not been people that have related to me, and I can describe them down to a T as well.
Wow.
And when I was younger, I was terrified because I just think I was so like tuned in to the spirit world that I would see things and I'd be scared and I'd put the cover over my head and I'd be like, please go away, I just want to sleep. And I've always experienced a lot of sleep paralysis as well, which is really scary, especially when you're a child, because you're kind of in this half awake, half sleep state and everything around you is warping and you're seeing sometimes the worst things possible. Like I've always been scared of spiders and I see spiders coming down from the ceiling and, the wallpaper with bugs underneath it and stuff like that. But I remember I've even seen things in the day, like not just at night. Like I remember working in this like little Italian boutique in Woking, and I was drinking a cappuccino behind the till and I looked into the storefront window and there was a tribal man there with literally like a spear staring right at me, like really intense stare. And I just froze and I was just like, oh my God, like really, really vividly seeing him and his like really intense stare. And I've experienced the hag as well. Like I've had the hag sitting on my chest loads of times, or, I remember staying at my dad's place and having someone sit on the end of the bed. You know that feeling, if you've ever had a cat where they like jump up on the bed and you feel the bed
go down.
Well, that happened at my dad's, but there wasn't a cat there. I just felt the pressure of someone sitting on the end of the bed. It doesn't scare me now. I'm not afraid of spirits at all. I spend a lot of time sleeping in this house on my own because obviously Tom, my husband, is on tour all the time. This is quite a big house to be on your own in at night. And I've got like a curtain next to my bed that kind of is a temporary curtain that kind of like separates my office from the bedroom. And I've even sort of like been lying there and I've seen the curtain move, like someone's held it with their hand and then not like the wind, They look very different,
No,
don't
it's
they? The wind
open.
kind of flows, doesn't it? And it was like opened and then shut next to my head. You know, look, she's terrified. It didn't scare me. My mum has said that the women in my family on her side have always been able to commune with spirits and see spirits. And I talk to my grandparents all the time. I talk to them all the time. They don't necessarily talk back to me in the conventional sense that you would think. But I do see things all the time. And some people would say you've got an overactive imagination. I don't. I see things, definitely. I think some people are just more perceptive to energy.
Yep.
You know, and like you said, sometimes when you open yourself up, you become much more in tune with that. But I've definitely walked into places and been like, wow, there's some bad energy in here. Like I remember being a teenager and going on like a World War II holiday. Holiday is the wrong word. It was like an educational, like school trip.
School trip, yeah.
Definitely didn't feel like a holiday. But we went into a German graveyard, and honestly, the temperature outside the graveyard was like 26 degrees, really hot, sunny day. You stepped into that graveyard, which was outside, and the temperature just dropped.
plummeted.
It completely dropped. And this is not me like saying Germans are evil, these are bad people or whatever. There was just some intense, intense energy in that space. The sun disappeared. There was clouds everywhere. It was really cold. Everyone was like, God, I wish I'd got my jumper with me, you know, because it was a sunny day. All of the gravestones were like black slate or something like that. They were like a polished black slate type vibe. And they had this grave, this mass grave that had like 25,000 bodies in it. And the energy in there was just dark. It just felt... There was just so much sadness and loss, and
the earth was also feeling it as well. That's what you were picking up on all the...
Yeah, I think because, you know, there was grass on the ground. There were these high hedges around the whole of the graveyard, but the whole vibe of the natural environment in there was off. And I just remember it so clearly. But, you know, there are I could cite so many different instances.
Yeah, because I remember
my
you
life.
telling me an incident where you went somewhere and you were like, I have to leave.
Oh, yeah. So on our honeymoon, we went to Hallstatt, which is like a little medieval town in the mountains in Austria. And I went into a catacombs, which honestly was tiny. It was like really, like the ceiling was really low. It was a really small room. And the air in there was so close and suffocating that I had to leave. And I've been to other catacombs and stuff like that, and it's not felt like that. But this specific space...
Get me out.
There aren't many places that I'm afraid to be in, and I was repelled. Like, from, you know, it felt wrong in there. But also like a positive experience when my granddad died. Obviously, that's not positive, but I was at his funeral, and you know, everyone was like really sad. My granddad was really loved. I think all of my sisters feel like he's the best man that we've ever known. Tom and I actually got married on his birthday.
Oh.
But at his funeral, you know, we were standing around his grave, and these butterflies were just circling around his graveyard, and then they'd circle around us, and then they'd circle around his graveyard. And it was in a way that it was unreal that it would have just been a coincidence.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like around, and then circling us individually.
Wow.
You know, and I think it's Russian folklore that says that butterflies are actually the souls of loved ones that are passed over. But it felt very significant at the time. That's all I can say.
There was one thing that when we were saying about how, you know, you see things, and we were talking about closing yourself off and then kind of opening up. I do remember saying to like certain, you know, people that I've known that have passed over, if you do want to contact me in my dreams. That's where I feel most comfortable to receive messages. And I have had dreams about loved ones that have passed over, which has felt quite comforting actually, because it's like it's almost like a message that they're okay.
Yeah.
So So yeah, dreams.
Dreams.
It's funny because when you guys were talking, I was literally thinking about the time that I met my granddad in my dream. Actually, it wasn't a dream. Sorry, it was a shamanic healing session. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you kind of like wrapped up in a blanket. You're listening to drumming, and you've got like a kind of like a what do you call it? Like over your eyes that you can't see.
An
eye mask. Thank you. And you know, you're kind of listening to this drumming, and you're kind of reciting, you know, accessing your shamanic healing space through this Axis Mundi, which you normally climb up. So as part of my shamanic healing, I was climbing up this tree that was in my mum's garden. Sorry, and as I went in, I walked into kind of like a plantation type vibe. And there was a white house with a porch around it. And my granddad was sat in a rocking chair on the porch. And I walked up to him and I gave him a hug. And I could feel his skin on my skin. I could feel his bristly like face against my skin. And I could smell his aftershave. And I just started crying in this session because he was literally there. I could feel him. I could smell him. I could, it was so realistic that I felt this immense relief, but it felt like a dream, if that makes sense. I thought I was in a dream, but I wasn't, I was actually just in the shamanic healing session. But I think with what you were saying about contacting me in my dreams, I think there's a fear that you need to break through.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that was a while ago that I used to say that. I'm not so much like that anymore.
Well, also you walked through that entity. I mean, that's brave.
Yeah, I know.
That's pretty brave.
I didn't have a choice, otherwise I would have had to sleep downstairs. Yeah, I definitely feel differently now, especially after doing work with you over like Samhain and stuff like that, and being a little bit more open. I mean, I think on another episode, I spoke about, the session that we did with you with the Dumb Supper and feeling my ancestors behind me. And it didn't feel scary at all. It felt really comforting. So there's work still to be done. But
you created the spirit candle, though, and that's a really beautiful piece of, shadow work, ancestral shadow work.
Yeah. So in the coven every Samhain now, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be a recurring thing. I've started a spirit candle workshop with our coven members where everyone can craft their own candle for their ancestor. And then we usually use it in the ritual for Samhain, don't we? So, and I think it's such a nice thing to do because I encouraged everyone to use like essential oils that might remind them of their ancestor. And it just feels like a real nice way to connect, especially like, I don't know, with the candle light and everything. And, I know that my partner's mum, every time it's a birthday or an anniversary of death, she will always light a candle for them. And I feel like candles,
I think that's
quite significant.
Something that I was just thinking about then about how in our culture that we don't honour the dead. When we go to cemeteries are so beautiful, but in witchcraft it's so amazing to do an ancestral candle and think about that ancestor that you want to thank and the journey that they've led for you to be here. Because I when I go visit Dad's grave, and some of the graves are gorgeous. They spend so much time there, and they weed it and they love it. And it's obviously their healing as well. But some of them are so neglected and abandoned and forgotten, and it's almost like they're in the past, it's all forgot. And it's such a shame. And I think that's why the fear that you both mentioned is so raw still today with death, that everyone is so afraid of it. And if you can kind of honour it, see the beauty of it, and do take the time to think about it. I think this was something a friend and I who had lost parents were talking about, is taking the time to think about it and come to terms with it in your own beautiful way. And I do think witchcraft, there's one beautiful aspect of it that really, really honours it and makes you aware of it, makes you think about it, makes it a ritual or a candle, a ceremony. It's so important. It's so important for sort of every aspect of you, your mental health, your soul, how you understand it, how you interpret it. It's a really, really important thing, and there's such fear still around it.
I mean, I'd say it's hard work. Like, it's really hard work sometimes to
you have to be pretty resilient, don't you?
Yeah, to think about your loved one that's passed away, and some people find it really, really like tough to do that.
Really hard.
But I do feel like it's important to work through those things and honor those people that were an important part of your life.
Yeah, and there are really beautiful ways to honor them in your everyday life. Like I'm surrounded by my ancestors in my house. You know, I've got you can't see on camera, but I've got a huge, big money plant that my grandma was growing for years and years and years. And my mum's got too many of her plants, and she said, I don't know what to do with this. And I was like, I want it. And I've now started propagating it and turning it into lots of other baby plants. And she's been looking after it probably for a decade, I would imagine. Or, you know, I look around my house and I've got books from my grandparents' house. I've got stuff on my altar. I've got like a picture of my great grandma Taylor, who is the one who used to commune with spirits like very openly. She could speak with the dead. You know, I've got a Victorian rolling pin that I use in my baking, and everything that they're around me everywhere. You know, their stuff is around me, and that does contribute to me being a hoarder, unfortunately. But I'm very, very sentimental about, you know, the things that they used to use every day. And I feel like looking after a grave is just one part of the way that you can honor them. And I think when I started dipping into ancestral witchcraft, I started realizing that I wanted photos of my ancestors visible in my everyday life. Like I wanted to be able to look at them every day that I got up and you know, think about them. And you can do that in a way that is not scary and is not, you know,
frightening.
It's not sad or
sad. Yeah,
because I think a lot of thinking about like objects and obviously how much they mean to you, and some of them are like, you know, really like mundane everyday objects.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they go and clear out their ancestors' house, mum, dad, grandparents, you know, whoever's doing it, will just skip it all.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. Which I think is really sad. And I know for a fact that there was a really vintage gramophone that got chopped up into pieces and put into a skip that belonged to my great grandparents, which I would have loved.
I've got a gramophone over in the corner. But yeah, I think there's also a sustainability part of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, why would you throw those things away?
Yeah, like, someone else, even if it's not a direct family member, it could be reused, you know, elsewhere.
But I think that's how throwaway our culture has become, and how, you know, how it's contributed to our disconnectedness with life and death. Yeah absolutely. I think there was a relative of mine his wife passed away, and the very next day all her clothes were in the garden and were on fire. They were all burnt.
Oh gosh.
So that is the amount of like, I need it all gone. There's such disconnect.
I think that's grief, personally.
That's
think that's someone grieving.
Massive grief.
Not knowing what to do with the stuff.
And just throwing it on in the fire. But it was so, I think for the rest of us, we were like, oh, it's all gone. And we were wanted to remember and, you know, and honour. But as you say, it's grief, and it's trying to process it.
And I guess you have to have the capacity to process it as well, don't you? Because I'm just thinking about my father-in-law and him bagging stuff up and getting it down the charity shop, when I would have like fingered through all of her stuff, and, you know, like, you know, really, like, he did actually bring me back a scarf of Tom's grandma, because she just died literally a few weeks ago, and at the moment it's over my mirror upstairs, and every night before I go to bed I smell it, and it smells like her. And it's just like, oh, you know, I'm going to be really sad when that scent's gone, because it just smells like her. And it's just such a lovely feeling. And I don't have that for any of my ancestors anymore, because obviously they passed away years ago. I have some things, like I have, like, my mum gave me a hairbrush that has some of my grandma's hair in it, and I was going to get it made into some like memento mori jewelry.
Beautiful.
I'm like really overly sentimental about this stuff. I actually find it hard to release things that I don't need. But what I was thinking might be interesting to talk about is how what funerals are like in the UK, and actually like my interest specifically in being a death doula.
Could you explain what a death doula does?
What
a death doula do?
So I guess a death doula is like almost like a spiritual assistant for the person who's passing over, not for the family. There's also birth doulas as well. And I think we're moving into a time when people want to have assistance from someone that has a much more kind of like spiritual approach, rather than this kind of like medical sterile
Clinical
environment. Like being in a doctor's surgery. A lot of people say that birth is a lot more successful when it's at home in your own environment with the right person there. And I think that having just been to a funeral, I mean, I like leading ceremonies anyway. Like you and I have spoken a lot about doing like hand fastings and stuff like that, and marking significant moments in people's lives with ceremony. We kind of are already doing that. But having been to this funeral a few weeks ago, I just really feel like I want to help offer something that's really personalized and really connecting, because I didn't really feel like that was what I was expecting. It wasn't what I was expecting at the funeral.
Yeah.
It was very what you would be used to in terms of like a religious funeral, like some hymns, a psalm read out loud. I liked the eulogy. The eulogy was lovely.
The eulogies are probably the most.
Yeah, because you learn about someone.
It's personal. Yeah, you hear about their story.
But I want more of that.
Yeah,
and, I think that even the flowers and the coffin choice, they didn't reflect her as a person, in my opinion. But, so there's that kind of ceremony for the people that are still living. But that really, really important part of seeing someone through their last hours of life and like helping them transition, because it can be scary, and just helping them reach the other side,
peacefully.
This big triumphant end to their life. And being there to hold their hand and being brave, not being surrounded by people that are crying and terrified, but actually kind of like giving them warmth and support and seeing them through to that next phase. Stage.
I think it sounds really beautiful, and I think you would be absolutely amazing at it. My dad was deeply Catholic, so we had the priest in, and they did the final. They said the final. When I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, the whole thing, because he was so religious, and he had like different objects on him for things that we wanted to honor Dad with, that he would have loved. There was a sort of honoring in that way. So I know what you mean. It's the personal touches that are really the beautiful moments. And actually, talking about funerals, so we organised Dad's funeral, and he had a Catholic requiem, so it was hey man, it's gone on for a long time as well. And I did the eulogy.
But they're like an hour long or something.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours.
Wow.
But it's humongous. But there are beautiful bits of it with the incense around his coffin. That was gorgeous. Actually made my dear friend have a coughing fit because all the incense went in his mouth, and then he had to get up and run out of the church, and all you could hear was but I actually went to one of my drama teachers was a Quaker, and we had a Quaker funeral. That was unreal. It was just a table with all of us in a circle, all her favourite things, her photo, her favourite chocolates, and it was this beautiful personal. And the Quakers believe in when the spirit moves you stand up and speak. So I think that is so beautiful in the sense, like we talk about the doula, that's sort of honouring the joy of the person.
Well, that's actually, it's funny that you say that. That's literally my favourite part of a funeral, is the bit after the funeral where you all sit down and you're going through photos and you're talking about funny things that happened and things that they said. The wake. I love those bits. I think that they're amazing, and they really just like they celebrate the life of the person. That's what it should be about, really.
Yeah.
Although I have got this really epic idea for my funeral. I just want everyone to come in Victorian morning wear with like veils and like black dresses to the floor. And I want to have like really gothic like organ music. And
I thought you were going to say metal music.
no, I want to go old school. I want it to kind of like be
You're going to have an open
comical
casket as well.
Yes. Yes.
Open casket.
Yeah, I want you all to look at my face.
Yeah. God.
And I'm going to haunt you guys. Just for the lols.
Well.
Every time you try and go to sleep, I'm going to be like, boo.
Yeah.
Boo, bitch.
Scared now.
I'll be like, for fuck's sake.
Leave me alone, Tony.
Goofy spirit.
I don't want to pass on and become part of the environment. I want to scare you, bitches.
Well, let's talk actually. That seems like a good way to move on to spirits getting stuck.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why a lot of hauntings and things happen, because sometimes someone's energy does get sort of stuck in this world, I suppose.
That's what I kind of felt about the German graveyard, is that they felt like there was stuck energy there. It was sad.
Of the trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma.
Because I think, there was that horrible horror movie, The Ring.
Oh,
yeah.
In which, you know, someone died in violence, and so that because of that traumatic event, they were stuck in that house. And I do genuinely believe that can happen. I mean, that's a silly film, but you know, I do think you can feel the energy in a house when you walk into it. Like if you're going to buy a house, you're going to rent a house, whatever, you walk through that door and you can feel the energy straight away, whether it's got a bad vibe, whether it's got a good vibe, or whether it's got no vibe at all. Like this house had like no vibe at all.
Oh, I was gonna say,
like,
this is vibing.
damn.
I know, and I was searching for some bad vibes. No, I was like, come on, there's got to be a ghost in here somewhere. But I did, to be fair, I did do a ceremony, not a ceremony, but like a ritual in which I asked the house if we could live here in harmony with each other.
I think that's so beautiful. And I remember you telling me about this last year, about honouring houses and items as well, like vintage items.
Like mirrors and stuff.
Yeah, and just so anything now that comes into the house that's vintage, I will welcome it into the house. It kind of feels silly to say that.
No, I mean, I literally ask plants if I can harvest them because that feels rude. Please don't
take your leave.
Literally. And I won't pick flowers anymore because I feel like it's not okay to pick them.
Aww.
But no, it was interesting about this house because this was a house of multiple occupancy. It was a house that people, like a halfway house out of prison. So, obviously it wasn't that originally, but in terms of kind of like its biggest period, it that's what it was. And so I think that it was like a liminal space for people that were living here like a short amount of time. So there was no time for any energy to get stuck here. And I think that's why I don't feel any energy in the house. Unfortunately. I did really try and search. There was a cupboard downstairs that was sealed shut and it had some weird things in it. And when we were opening it, we were like, we're going to find a head in here. And with, you know, there was like a suitcase and stuff like that. And we were like,
what's in the box?
Opening the suitcase, I was like, cobwebs. You know, there was nothing, you know, it's like some weird things and a crawl space under the house. But honestly, couldn't feel anything in here at all. But I have been in houses where I've been like, something not good has happened here.
Yeah.
I can feel like you feel like a cold vibe.
Well, when I am going house shopping, I'll be bringing you with me.
bringing all of the like rosemary to like.
So you don't mind if my friend just comes and checks out the house?
Like she's holding the wall and humming. Come speak to me, spirits. As I get older, I'm going to get more woo-woo.
Yeah. Just to freak people out even more.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to really just like encapsulate that whole caricature. Sorry, I was speaking to a spirit then.
Just having a chat.
I completely lost where we were.
So we were talking about spirits getting stuck, and probably, you know, a lot of that is to do with trauma, and that's why you get the hauntings. And but something that you said to me was, because a lot of people's tendencies when this sort of happens in a house, is to cleanse the space and get rid of the energy. But I remember you saying it's actually better to commune with the energy. And
Well, I think it's deeply disrespectful because you're essentially saying this is my house, you don't belong here, and it's for you to leave. And it's not your house. This isn't my house. It's never going to be my house because, my lifespan is shorter than the house's. And, there are loads of life forms that have existed in this house before me, and they've lived in this house as well. And it would be wrong for me to ask them their energy to not be in the house anymore. So yeah, I feel that it makes more sense to try and find the strength to just say, can we try and live together? Is there a way in which we can live in this space together in harmony? Like I said, you would with a house, I'd like to live here safely, and for us to, I think I said to the house, we'll be really respectful with the bones of this house. We won't go smashing things down and stuff like that. We'll only make you stronger. That was what we wanted to do.
It's so beautiful. I love it. I really love it.
Oh.
Talking to the house, I think it's beautiful.
Well, it's that, a house holds a lot, doesn't it? It holds. My dog is getting involved now. She's giving me a little stroke.
She knows.
Yeah, it just feels important to me. Like, I think cleansing the energy out of a home feels wrong. It feels like you're trying to erase its history or erase the memories that have happened in it. So yeah, that's just how I feel, and a lot of the time in these witch spaces where people are like, oh, I've got this energy in the house and blah, 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 blah. Everyone always says, smoke cleanse the house.
Yeah.
Smoke cleanse it. And I actually think you're inviting more trouble when you do that, because you're basically, you're suppressing something. You're suppressing that energy. And actually that energy needs to, it needs to resolve in its own time.
Yeah.
That energy needs to move on when it's ready to. And I don't think that we should be pushing them out the door.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, what about communing with them then? There's a lot of tools and things out there today, a lot of them that people will be aware of, like a Ouija board, things like that. What do we think about those?
I'll be honest, I don't know much about them because I don't, it's weird to me. I sort of feel like talking or communing with a spirit is so personal to you that I feel like
Doesn't require a tool.
Doesn't require a tool in my head. I've never used a Ouija board. It's not that I would never, it's just it's never come up. I've never had a moment where the Ouija board's presented itself. But I don't know, I sort of feel like mine is almost personal. It's all happening within me or to me. Like, I can't explain. I feel like I don't need the Ouija board.
What do you think about Ouija board?
I think it's a toy.
Oh, there you go.
I don't think that there are tools for communing. I think that you commune.
Yeah.
I think you communicate in whatever way feels comfortable to you, whether it's in your dreams. I literally just walk around the house chatting to my grandparents, like all the time. Like, sometimes I'm driving and I'm just chatting to my grandparents as if they're in the car. I must sound absolutely batshit crazy, but I do, but I do with my dog. I walk around the house chatting to my dog all the time.
And the plants.
And I do. I was literally singing to my plant earlier. So embarrassing. But I think that a Ouija board is a toy made for people to pretend that they are communicating with spirits, to scare themselves. It's the product of horror films, and it makes fun horror film. I can't deny that.
Again, I feel that's almost, to me, it feels like a joke.
It is. It's trivializing.
It's interesting actually, because when I went to Edinburgh, there was loads of Ouija boards in the Witchcraft Museum.
Yeah, because it's the commercialization of speaking with spirits, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every aspect of this spiritual practice, there's something that you can buy, and you actually don't need to buy anything. There are things that I find that are helpful, but I think that they're more about if you wanted to, in a very kind of like official is not the right word, but like in a formal way, you wanted to try and get into the headspace to have a conversation. You might like a candle. I quite like a mirror. I'm doing this because there's a mirror in front of me. But, you know, you don't need them. They are helpful. And, you know, I do actually really enjoy visiting a grave. I don't really like cremation. I feel that it removes the essence of the life suit that someone wears through their lives. I like visiting bones.
Yes.
You know, I think if you incinerate bones, there's nothing to visit. This is just my opinion.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting that you brought that up, because for ages I thought that I wanted to be cremated because I had
don't get cremated.
I'm not going to. It's on camera now, so no one can cremate me. Because I had this fear of being buried alive.
Right.
That also stems from
horror movies.
Yeah. But now, no way I would get cremated. Absolutely not. I want to be buried. And, you know, like you were saying, being at one with the earth and, you know.
But, you know, like every part of us is meant to degrade naturally in the ground. And the bones stay for a long, long, long time. And, you know, you can still go and visit that memorial of someone's life and feel connected to their earthbound life suit. Essentially.
I love that you keep using the term life suit.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it?
I love life suit.
But it is a life suit. It's like you've unzipped it and taken it off.
Yeah.
But,
no, I totally agree with you. I think, and it's so funny listening to this because I do feel like Dad's in my ear going, that's what I think, because that's exactly what he thought. He was like, I want you to come to my memorial and know that I'm there, that I'm in there and I'm becoming one with everything. And
I go and kiss my grandparents' grave, like the gravestone, not the ground, but like I kiss the stone, you know, just to say hello.
Hi, how you
doing?
Like,
you know, like you would hug a friend that you haven't seen for a while. You know, it's just a thing that I do. It's not just what I do, my sisters do it as well. And yeah, I just think it's so beautiful visiting. And again, there's like a romanticism around it, isn't there, of being able to visit a loved one's grave. And I love the idea, like when you're talking about being buried with a tree above you and becoming part of the tree, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. But I also want that Victorian coffin that, like, you know, someone's going to have to carry, and it's going to be like, oh, she died before her time. You know,
still organ.
Yeah, she's still a bird. In your black veils. I do. I want it to almost be comical how like Victorian and spooky it is.
I could just see you being like,
I think look at this expense for nothing.
I think like thinking about like becoming one of the other. To me, Dad's soil around it is beautiful.
Yeah,
like, I know. Again, I probably
nutrient dense.
Yeah, hello. But I feel like it's so.
Have you taken some of the soil?
No, did I tell you the story when I was in it?
No.
So talking about grief.
Yeah. So sorry, I just went to Saltburn and I was like, I was like, this is not appropriate. Don't say it, Tony.
She said it, everyone. She said it.
I think all you needed to say was Saltburn.
I'm sorry, it's not Saltburn.
Carry on.
Oh my God. But I was grief stricken. It was about 2 weeks, but the soil's so
did you put your hands in it?
I put all my hands in and I was there. But then there was a really sweet couple with a dog went, are you okay? And you're like, and then no, I'm not. And I was like, half in his grave, like up to here, and looking up, and then doing a really British thing of going, yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. I'm absolutely fine. Like getting into my dad's grave.
I love you.
I was like, I've read too much Wuthering Heights.
You've taken it to the next level. Like, oh yeah, kiss my grandparents' gravestone. Well, I actually just
climbed in. I literally like was talking about Victorian mourning like funerals, and you're literally in the dirt with your dad.
Absolutely bonkers. Oh God, just their faces, because I was crying as well, so it must have looked quite.
They might have thought you'd come out of the ground.
I'd come out. Hello. Like,
I was buried alive.
No, I'm absolutely fine. It was great in there, and I'm back now. Just had a bit of a rest. But then I was like, the reason I think for me is because as a witch, I was like, the soil is great. Like it's Dad. Like it's part of it. But then obviously everyone, I've seen that couple again, and they go, hiya, and I go, all right.
Yeah. Right, mate.
Were you wearing your witch dress?
Oh, this is appropriate for a cemetery. Yeah. So yeah,
I love that story.
That's one way to
I'm going to
feel
remember
connected.
that forever.
I'm not saying you should do that, everyone.
Don't worry about putting pictures on your walls. Really get in there with your ancestors.
Just your little feet.
Woo, witch tip.
Hot witch tip. Heard it here first.
Wow, on that note, I feel like we have come to the end of our episode. All about death and all things beyond the veil. Ladies, do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I know it's hard. I know that thinking about death is really hard, like we were saying. But I think it is a really important thing to educate yourself on, or to allow yourself to feel, because it is, like we said right at the start, full circle. It's inevitable. We all know that we are born to die. That's just part of it. And I think finding your peace with it, whatever way that might look, is so important to your existence. I think that's my
definitely.
note on that.
And I think my piece would be to just not be afraid. Like, it is the most absolute thing that's going to happen, and it is a natural part of life, and it should be celebrated in the same way that birth is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I love now honouring all of my ancestors, or some of the closer ones anyway. And I think it's just so nice, like you were saying, about having them on your altar, to remind you, you know, not only of your heritage, but also of their lives. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we could talk all day about this subject, and there's probably bits we've missed, maybe. Who knows, we might come back to this again, but yeah, thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Great.
And thank you, everybody at home, for tuning into today's episode of Embracing Magic. Please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed it. And leave us a comment. We love chatting with you. We love hearing from you. And yeah, we'll see you all again soon for another episode of Embracing Magic.